everybody. Welcome. This is Neil with Portal to Ascension, here with Alan Steinfeld of New Realities, and welcome to the Galactic Origins panel. So I want to say officially hello to everybody on all platforms. We're on Seeking Heaven, Tamara. We're on Drone of Angels. We're on New Realities. We're on Portal to Ascension, and we're on Instagram. So hello to everybody. I'm behind the Portal to Ascension Instagram, so good to see you all, connect with you here, and also Facebook. And we're also going to be putting this on our podcast, Portal to Ascension Radio. So I got to acknowledge everybody across all the platforms because it's going to go many places here. And what we're going to do today is, this is the first of 3 panels. Okay, today we have the Galactic Origins panel. In a couple of hours from now, we have the Ascension panel. And then in a few more hours after that, we have the Extraterrestrial Experiencer panel. Okay, unfortunately, only 1 or 2 of the speakers that we had for this panel will be joining us today. Some things came up, but the show must go on, so we're still going to have a conversation here. And I want to let you all know that tomorrow, obviously, if you're watching this in the past, it's different. Tomorrow, if you're watching this in the future, then this is in the past, which is January 12th. So for everybody on the podcast, everybody tuning in, what I'm going to speak about now is an evergreen event. You can tune in at any point. You can go back and check it out, sign up, watch the replays. And this is the Ultimate Star Beings Conference. We're going to be live for 4 days, January 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, Friday to Monday, 8 hours a day, 33 presenters. And you just saw the trailer. Of course, if you're on the podcast, you only heard the trailer. And you can sign up, link in the description, in the bio, comments, website, under our upcoming events, and all that. And we're going to go for a 4-day marathon and epic awareness on the ultimate star beings and really shifting the narrative to, what are the messages we're receiving from the stars. So I want to just introduce someone that you've probably been introduced to many times and just hand it over to my really good friend, Alan Steinfeld. And we're going to be having a conversation here today with Geraldine and maybe Raquel Spring about Galactic Origins started out. So welcome, Alan. You're muted.
Thank you. I always like
I think Alan froze for a second. Hopefully that's not my end. So let's give Alan a second here. I don't want to talk over him. Yeah, he did freeze. So we're going to be bringing on Geraldine in just a moment. Hopefully Alan's camera is going to catch up with him. And the intention for the beginning of this panel here is to really speak about the galactic origins. What does that mean? It connects to our ancestry. A lot of the narrative that we're getting around this topic, I'm going to remove Alan until he comes back. Hopefully Alan will rejoin us. A lot of the information we get around this topic, a lot of the questions that Congress has, mainstream platforms have around who these beings are and where they're coming from, I feel can be answered from the spiritual world when it comes to the consciousness. Because it's not just about the fact that we're being visited. It's who are these beings, why are they visiting us, and how are we connected to them. So galactic origins is a huge component because many of these beings that are within the cosmos, we have ancestry to. And not only are they, I feel, countless, maybe thousands or more, maybe even infinite experiences, agendas, interactions with interdimensional beings and extraterrestrial beings on this planet. But many of the beings that are watching us now have a vested interest in our experience here on Earth. And that, I feel, is because of our galactic origin. So it's a really great way to start this entire panel out. Plus, every single year on Portal to Ascension, I come up with a new theme for the year. And the theme for this year is Galactic Origins, right? So what would be a better way to start with the panel on that? And we're going to be having a lot of events throughout the year in relation to that topic. So let me check to see if Alan's here. No, he's not. So what we're going to do is just going to go ahead and start the conversation. And we have Geraldine Orozco in the house. So let's go ahead and bring Geraldine on. Hey, Geraldine, welcome.
Hi, Neil. How are you? Good morning. Wonderful to be here.
Good to see you. And so it's just going to be, I think it's just going to be you, me, and Alan, if Alan can figure out his camera. But I want to just start the conversation, since there's only a few of us today, we won't be going too long. But the whole concept, I think you just heard my introduction about this, right? The whole reality that we're being visited by many different beings. And a lot of the ones that have ancestry and a connection to us are definitely involved in our, evolution. but then there's also those beings that are involved in the future evolution of humanity that are visiting us too, right? That would come into the hybrid agenda. So I'd love for you just to, just to begin sharing your perspective on what is going on and how our galactic origins is connected to this evolution in consciousness.
Wow, yes, it's such a big topic. So really what we want to kind of remember, and what's coming up a lot to people, is that more people are going to be remembering their contact. More people are remembering their contact just because of the nature of how we're doing in general, just the vibrational frequency of what we're moving into collectively. The veils are thinning to such a point that people so essentially our DNA and all the information that is available to us within the morphogenetic field of our whole being is coming to the surface. It's coming visible. It's coming accessible to people because the veil is thinning. And so what people are remembering is more vividly their dreamscape, what they are experiencing in dream time, what they're experiencing out-of-body experiences. And therefore, an entire realm opens up to humanity of who they are outside of just this physical vessel. So what I have been discovering in my work with my experiencer groups and contactees is that we're finding that this ET contact is not a strange phenomenon. It's something that we have been dealing with since the very beginning of time, since the origin of humanity on this planet. Really, we have been intercommunicating with the beings of the stars, which essentially is not something outside of us, but it's very much something that is literally within our genetic code. It's in our DNA. And actually talking to these contactees, we're finding that it's occurring in families. Families are having contact experience within specific lineages, and the children that are being born are having dreams with blue beings, and apparently the blue beings are the same blue beings that mom saw, that grandma saw. So we're beginning to understand that we're kind of building a kind of clarity of an architecture of a realm of genetic ancestry that is interdimensional, intergalactic in a sense. And it's extremely important for us to dive into these experiences in order to master the navigation and the understanding of discernment of the kind of agreements that we're making in these interactions, and hopefully apply our free will as best as possible so that we can make choices with these beings. Because as you mentioned, these programs such as the hybridization program really rely completely on, let's say, the donor of that genetic data, and what that donor, what the person, the creator, essentially is inputting into this system through the seed that they are giving for these programs. If we are deep, yeah.
So are we becoming a new species? Are we, and what's the transition time, you think, when we really arrive? So is there a timeline?
Yeah, thank you, Alan. Wonderful to see you. Yeah, it's we absolutely are evolving tremendously quickly into a new multidimensional race. I mean, it is just everything that we see in sci-fi films and these future technologies that we're seeing that are presented to us as artificial intelligence, the capabilities of computation and connection to the non-physical realm and mastery over that is completely within our physical body. So we have to activate our intuition, absolutely, is number one. And that is a direct result of sitting in meditation and stillness, in really regulating the nervous system of the organism, which will expedite this evolutionary process for every human, because this is the root of mastering this physical construct, which of course it's not just a physical, it's an interdimensional construct. We are constantly moving in and out of these interdimensional interactions. I mean, we are surrounded by beings, by entities all the time, and really only those that are actually using their intuition to tune in to what's around them and to be in that stillness are having these communications. And what we're seeing is that a lot of these hybrids, of course, you and I, we are hybrids. That's the thing we have to understand, that as hybrids, as descendants of these lineages, we have encoded many gifts, many abilities that are running down these lineages: Pleiadians, Arcturians, reptilians, Lyrians, all of these species that are contributing to creating a human and are we are accessing the tools of these lineages to become the new humanity that we're becoming, which is the timeline is going to be catapulted in the next 10 years tremendously, but it really is up to us that we quickly flush out matrix programming out of our subconscious mind so that we can begin to prepare this vessel for this kind of technology that is meant to bring us forth in this new state of being.
What are the matrix programmings, and how do we know when we have it?
Yeah, so let's just talk about ET contact, right? So any kind of programming in which we are fearful of the unknown or unable to interact with interdimensionality or concepts of the non-physical is immediately a more primate way of existing. That essentially it's a vibrational frequency. So we need to refine that frequency from being very finite and very one-dimensional to becoming interdimensional, and that's very much a process of learning how to regulate the nervous system, programs of limiting belief systems around our emotions, our ability to create and manifest. So those are actually very important, because when we're confused about our ability to manifest, it really creates stagnation in the entire vortex spin of this organism. And really, in order to access dream time, out of body experiences, we need to be operating a really nice high spin rate, which is a high vibrational integration state. And so the other part is dream time. We have to learn how to become lucid in dream time. And that's really important. Learn how to master out of body navigation. This is the future of the integration of the non-physical and the physical, because these worlds are merging. So it's kind of like we have to prepare for that.
That's very interesting. I want to get into some, galactic origins questions, but the lucid dream, right? On some level, you could say that we're dreaming ourselves on this planet right now, right? The holographic nature of the universe. And it seems like that there's many entryways to this incarnational experience, right? That there's, physical beings coming from another planet, incarnating somehow. Then there's also been stories about people, beings in stasis chambers on different planets that live for thousands of years. And then they take like 100-year, Earth year vacation, if you will, go into a building where there's a stasis chamber, go into sleep and dream themselves awake into the incarnational process here, right? So on one level, we're becoming lucid in this reality, right? Being conscious of it all. And then we're becoming lucid in our dreams, right? So it's like an inception. So what is our dream state reality? And where are we actually going? Is this like a construct of our dimension in our own consciousness? Or is this an actual place that exists that we're traveling to that we can do some real work in?
Well, after talking to hundreds of contactees and working on hypnotherapies with them and entering into these subconscious realms where we are opening up into these worlds and into our fractals that exist in these advanced civilizations, we are very much multidimensional beings. And essentially what we're doing is we are merging all of our fractals of ourselves that exist not only in this current incarnation, but other incarnations that exist simultaneously. So that's the thing that a lot of people are really understanding now, is that this timescape that we're looking at, it's not linear at all. It's completely spherical. And so what we're doing is really waking up consciousness in as many of these aspects of ourselves and then integrating them into this one life, because this one perception that we have here is a very specific reason. So we have somewhat of a mission, you can say, in that as we incarnate into this DNA lineage, ancestral programs that have to be transmuted into a higher state, all of that is a contribution. It's kind of like the work and the contribution that you're giving for this collective organism, not just as a human race, but as a collective. So the more that we wake up consciousness and clear out those programs, the more we open up to our interdimensional awareness. And just like Inception, as you mentioned, we're waking up this lucidity, because once you wake up consciousness, you can access this Arcturian part of you, and you can wake up consciousness of that, because every single organism, every being is ascending, because that's the nature of this entire universe. They're all going through some kind of level of ascension. So we are learning through one another simultaneously through our conscious awakening.
So when we have this intergalactic family available to us, how does life on Earth look different for the average person, or does it not?
Does it look different? Well, I guess in what context? Like just the nature of our life.
Day to day living, and understanding, eating, working, family, community, relationship. How's that all change?
Yeah, that's a really great question. But really, actually, what we're waking up from, and remember the matrix, you exist in a construct with all kinds of rules and architecture to this existence that make up our everyday lives. But in reality, the real life is lived when you wake up from that dream of the construct and you begin to understand what the rules of the game are. And the rules of the game aren't to be completely tied up into the physical experience or the illusion of the triggers that are happening in everyday life, but to transcend them. And I think that that's something that we can see through by just observing more advanced civilizations. Their focus and the way that they operate is instant manifestation. So there's a huge level of responsibility to that existence. And it's something that we as Earth humans, three-dimensional realm, we're learning, and this is what we're evolving into. Even right now, our ability to manifest has become extremely quick. You'll notice that. All of our subconscious fears and ideas come into the physical experience really immediately. So that really makes us become more conscious of what we're thinking, feeling, and just the way that we are, the quality of our life, the quality of our existence has to change.
When I over the last few years, I've come to an awareness that I've definitely heard for a while that we have ancestry to different ETs, and you talk about that, so many of us do. But it seems that Earth could be a galactic library. Genetics. From listening to many hours of your presentations, right, and and so much more. It's like it seems like Earth is like the Library of Alexander for DNA, right, and that all these beings throughout the cosmos has donated DNA to this experiment on Earth. So my theory now is, and I don't know because I'm not all knowing in this limited bandwidth of frequency, but my feeling is that maybe every being in our galaxy has donated DNA to this Earth, because in some planets, in higher dimensional planets, we only hear about one or two species there. And it doesn't seem like the thousands or hundreds of thousands of species that we have on this planet is a common factor throughout the cosmos. So is it, in your perspective, has every being in our galaxy donated DNA here? Is Earth an experiment on all these beings that we have ancestry to, donating DNA to see how we can work together?
Yeah, well, I think that, and just to shift the perspective for just a moment, if you can think of species more of vibrational frequency rather than just species, kind of get an idea of how this is kind of functioning, just from my perspective. We are a collection, amalgamation. We are a product, and we are an expression of many vibrational frequencies. And those vibrational frequencies are encoded in DNA, which then project into a physical hologram, which is this physical body. We hold within us everything that is in the immediate organism. And this is kind of like the nature of our organisms too. When we look at the cells in the body, the cells of this one hand, all of those contribute and they all intercommunicate with the rest of the body. So if you think of the galaxy and universes, we're also intercommunicating through this quantum non-locality. We're all interlinked and interconnected as one. If you think of an organism being one, all of the species then participate through that vibrational frequency to create this genetic lineage. But I do believe that there has been some kind of genetic modification of some kind in order to produce, and I do believe that it's a natural genetic modification as a product of evolution to produce the kind of organisms that we embody. So the human race, and there are hundreds and thousands of humanoid races, not just the human race, that we interact with, that are our cousins, essentially. And then from there are hundreds of thousands of reptilian races, hundreds of thousands of gray-like beings.
Also our cousins.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because when you look at genetically at our own gestation process and the way that we evolve, we kind of go through each one of those different phases of these different species. They seem to be like organic genetic archetypes that we are kind of evolving through. And I believe that the kind of physical body is really a product of the dimension from which these beings are emerging from. And then the kind of the activities or the way that they exist, just like humans, really depends on their vibrational frequency. And of course, every dimension has many ranges of vibrational frequency. So that being said, the beauty of the human race is that we have the ability. Now, how does DNA work? DNA is like a portal that when you activate the DNA, when you activate these subconscious unlocked points in your own morphogenetic field, you literally have a gateway to this entire species that is within your genetic code, and you have access to that information. So the human has become extremely important as being this library, per se, of genetic data that we are, and we are contributing to creating more hybrids in dream time and in many lifetimes that are actually incarnating in our planet now. And every single organism that incarnates in a timeline is designed specifically to pull forward to heal those different kinds of species that they are connected to. So all of us. So let's say our Draco-reptilian aspects that we have within our genetic code, we are learning how to elevate, how to ascend those parts. And as a byproduct, the intercommunication with these species and these beings is also evolving them. So I do believe that we have that genetic data in us. We are all related because essentially the model of this entire universe and even more is oneness. We are all one organism. So we have the ability to access every single part of this universe through our self, through our own genetic code.
Right. And you said a key word there. You said healing, right? So and that's the whole other thing that I'm believing now too, is that and I don't mean this in a victim way, but it's kind of like a funny thing, is that Earth is like a mental hospital for galactic trauma processing. So it's like,
Yeah.
so are we all here to heal something? Did something happen in the galaxy, wars, disharmony, where Earth is like the final frontier or the final battleground for us confronting that darkness and moving through it?
Well, to be honest, no, I don't really see it that way. And here's why. Because right now, remember that this Earth, exists in third dimension, right? Which the whole point of existing in 3 dimensions is for you to experience contrast. So actually, only within everything that exists within third dimension is experiencing contrast and experiencing separation. Okay, so wars, hate, anger, separation, killing, death, all of that is a product. It's an expression of separation. So all the organisms that are participating consciously in the 3-dimensional realm experience of separation, their journey is essentially to return back to unity. And so, that's kind of part of that evolutionary. And every single organism in any dimension that has experienced a 3-dimensional realm is essentially learning how to go from separation into unity. How do we know this? Because the organisms and beings that exist in higher planes, let's say 11th dimension, they don't really exist in that construct of separation anymore. It is more unity. And every higher dimensional octave that you enter into, it is more unity, more unity. So the lessons of separation or wars are different. These concepts of wars are very much a 3-dimensional concept. They're very much our own filter of perception. Because as you get higher up into those higher dimensions, it's really a completely different thing. It is about let's say instant manifestation and let's say those very subtle internal thoughts and wars that resist against each other. That can be their entire evolutionary existence and testing. So I think that there are many levels, and this is why waking up consciousness and navigating dream state is so important, because the sooner you realize that, the quicker you move out and you can ascend and recollect your fractals in this human experience to begin to navigate higher dimensions. And this is important for death, because at the time of death, everything that you've activated throughout your entire life will help you choose the next dimension incarnation in which you participate with the collective.
So this gets interesting into some topics about what happened in the cosmos before we got here, right? So let's see if we can reconcile this and we can come up with a solution right now. So, or we have the Anunnaki story, right? Maybe you can just speak on that separately, what your belief is about us being enslaved. Were there high dimensional beings? Did they even exist? And then we have the whole story of Lyra, right? The Prism of Lyra book, the incarnation into Lyra, and a whole story about how it became disharmonic, and then there was wars in the galaxy, in the solar system, and then they moved out into the rest of the cosmos, and humanity started colonizing other solar systems. And we also have the stories of the Wars of Orion, which some call the DNA wars, right? So from the technology that these beings had and the awareness, it seems like it's a higher dimensional experience. So you're saying third dimension is a war-like reality, not those higher dimensions. So can you kind of speak on what happened in those situations? Did they even occur? Did those wars occur? And were they in a lower dimensional experience?
Yeah, so from what I have seen from my perspective, yes, there have been certain kind of wars, and there are always wars per se, but these wars exist within the 13 dimensions and under that are participating in the experience of the three-dimensional construct. So in other words,
let me just get clarification.
Yeah.
So 13th dimension and under is still part of the third dimensional construct because
Yeah.
physicality is?
Yes, because and it's kind of hard, but they're in every dimension. Okay, so there's an overlay dimension, and then there are subdimensions. There are frequencies within those dimensions, because this is how let's say light refracts. Or this infinite potential refracts and self-organizes within a construct, and so it organizes from lowest frequency to highest frequency. And so let's say that in order to exist in the three-dimensional construct of duality, there are 13 dimensions, and probably more than we know, that are participating in the experience of this construct. So within those 13 dimensions, there are higher beings, there are lower beings, but they all operate by the laws of the duality, that exist within this construct. So in other words, construct or anything having to do with separation, wars, those kinds of things are definitely going to exist at different levels in those different dimensional participations or influence. So these Anunnakis, Lyrans, Orions, all of these different races that have participated go through these different kinds of wars, and all of these wars that we're mentioning are things that are extremely kind of like old, and yet they exist in the history of our humanity, but they don't necessarily influence what we're capable of doing right now at all, really, because they're kind of like a historic point that have occurred in the past, a long time ago. What we're going through right now, but and what I mean by time being a long time ago, it is simultaneous, but it's at the far reach of where we're at evolutionary right now, which means that in this moment, we're extremely evolved away from those wars to the point where the human now has evolved to a point of awareness and sovereignty over their genetic I guess their power to have control over their genetic information. And I think that's why humanity is waking up awareness to the hybridization program. They're realizing, we're using ourselves, we are participating in these hybrid programs. And then what is my contribution to that, and how does it work? So, I have seen from the origin of time the story of the Anunnakis, which is, the original story of the Book of Enoch, for example, where Source experiences that separation and then breathes life into Yaldabaoth into the, Archons, and then the Archons into the Anunnakis. And then from there is kind of a ladder from where this Source, again, self-organizes into these different frequencies. And those frequencies are species. Those are the species, what we know as species, vibrational frequencies of consciousness. So the way that I see it at this point is that we have evolved and intermixed so much with so many races that in reality, we really should only look at it like vibrational frequency rather, because we're kind of an amalgamation of all of those. And so we are completely moving out of the concept of war. However, within these 13 dimensions, there is still a lot of manipulation as a result of people's lack of consciousness and waking up from this matrix. So in dream time, we are becoming aware of the fractals of ourselves that are enslaving ourselves as a lack of consciousness. We participate in these military programs, in these programs of being on different planets like Mars, and we're part of these government because those do exist. I mean, they are all run by these shadow governments that run not only planet Earth but other planets in this system, that are playing out these militaristic programs. So they do exist, and there is a darker aspect to hybridization as well. But really, it comes down to the human's awareness, because we're so interconnected, what you do in your ascension will change and transmute all of your participation of those fractals in those warlike settings. I have a lot of clients that, they become aware of themselves being on Mars as part of these warlike terraforming, all these kinds of programs that they're doing. And once they wake up consciousness, they shift the narrative in that life, and it shifts completely their participation of that. So just like we're waking up consciousness here on Earth, and we don't participate to the wars and to the death of humanity by neutralizing the wars within ourselves, it's the same thing intergalactically, with all of our fractals. And I think that, essentially, we have to move out of the war mindset into a state of understanding of unity. And that doesn't mean that the negative anything is going to go anywhere. It means that we have to neutralize the negativity and the separation programs within ourselves in order to be more sovereign. And that's a huge thing. Sovereignty and free will is a really huge thing that the human has in shifting these historic timelines. And hopefully we learn from those, because those wars in those stories, why those wars began is because the organisms forgot their connection to source and became parasitic, right? That's the whole point of these stories, to understand the process of parasitism. And when parasitism emerges in us, how do we quickly neutralize that so we don't go towards World War III? In the occasion of our human race, we're kind of going through that now.
Wow, yeah. When we speak about the beings, the usual suspects, right? The Arcturians, the Pleiadians, the Zeta Reticuli, the Lyrians, Syrians, are we speaking about all those beings within that 13th dimension and under? Or do these beings, and we all have an aspect of ourselves that are beyond the 13th dimension, but that's not an earthling, that's something completely different, right? So when it comes to the actual beings that we speak about interacting with us, do they engage within this 3D construct as well?
Yeah, absolutely. They engage around us, and so so it's a little complex because we do so, because Earth is duality. The negative nature of Earth, the negative part and the contribution to the construct, is run by the shadow government, which is an intergalactic government that is very aware of our history and our future and the capability that humanity has.
Is the shadow government connected to an ET race? Just a little
Yes,
side note.
yes, it is. Yes. So if you know these stories of the Anunnaki and the Archons, and how that was had been manipulated into a darker agendas at the origin of time, those are the bloodlines that were created that went into creating the matrix, essentially. So those genetic lineages are essentially the descendants that create this 1% that is in control of this entire world. Those are bloodlines. Those are very, very old, specific bloodlines that have been cultivated through history. And they hold within those bloodlines very genetic roots of our ancestry. And so when someone holds and cultivates DNA, they essentially have the access to the entire library of the universe. But since we're evolving into a higher octave as a human race, we all have access to that now. We're kind of moving out of the dark ages where we didn't understand how multidimensional we are. We are now waking up, and it's not just it's that more of us are waking up. So this information was always available to humanity for those that searched for it, but more of humanity is now coming into this awareness, and so we're kind of essentially this shadow government that is playing out these roles, it's kind of like we are rebalancing that imbalance. Okay, and remember, everything is cyclical. So if you look at our history, the world history, we've gone through these cycles before. We've gone through deep moments of unconscious hypnosis states of sleep, and also we've gone through heightened states of awareness. We can look at the Mayan civilization, the ancient Egyptians. We can look at Atlantis, all of these ancient civilizations that have reached these high peaks of technology and consciousness. We're entering another one of those cycles now. And so for that, these shadow government parts of us, we have to proactively work in dream time and in waking state in the contribution to those.
I want to ask about the shadow government. Isn't disclosure part of exposing?
Alan froze, but I'm sure he's going to say, isn't it part of exposing the shadow government? Oh, you're back, Alan. Go ahead, finish your question.
Are we exposing? Disclosure is the process of exposing the shadow government, because we're seeing the Pentagon's relationship to ETs and corporations, and they are controlling our minds. So talk about disclosure in terms of shadow government and the progression of people standing up for themselves.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, the way that I see it is that actually disclosure, the concept of disclosure as proposed and presented by the government, is very much actually part of the shadow agenda. And here's why. Hear me out. Because in reality, if we go back to our ancient roots, if we go back to sitting and reconnecting with ourselves, we already know deep inside of us at some point, once we deprogram the indoctrination that was created by the government to make us believe that we are not interdimensional, that there are no ETs, that there's no shadow government, that is all of those misconcepts of reality are a product of shadow government to begin with. So the concept of disclosure is really them saying, okay, we're at a vibrational point where we can't hide this information anymore. We have artificial intelligence now, ultra massive computing information in which we can't hide all of this stuff that we have been trying to suppress. And now the natural organic consciousness is coming to the play now, in which we are already accessing this information. So really, we really are the ones that are waking up consciousness and disclosing for ourselves reality. And, inevitably, because of this heightened level of consciousness of in humanity in general, the entire human race, all of that darkness and stuff that have been suppressed for a long time is coming to the surface. And we are contributing doing that. The internal work that we do for ascension is essentially the same that is happening external to us. It's mirroring.
Right. You spoke just a few moments ago about cycles, right? It's interesting because you cyclically picked up on it, because I was literally thinking about asking you the next question about the cycles of time. You've heard this whole concept that we go through cycles of time, 4 ages, right? We go through evolution, devolution. So, it's the Great Year in the Maya and many other cultures, 25,900 years or so, right? So what this supposedly connects to is the evolution and the remembrance of humanity, where we even get to a telepathic communication, and then the devolution, where we start using external tools to do things that we can do internally, also known as the external Merkaba, basically relying too much on external tech. They even speculate this was happened with Atlantis. So my question is that, if we've been having these 26,000 year cycles, and we do a lot of events on this, like how many civilizations have there been? We don't even know about. How many resets have there been? In your opinion, are we going to get to a phase where we break free from the cycles so that we stop having to reset, we stop attracting cataclysmic disasters, and we continue an evolution? and eventually become the ETs to other planets? Like, is that what our future is destined? And how do we know that that's happening instead of the continuous resets? Like, what's your opinion on that?
Well, my opinion is that we absolutely are doing that. And essentially, it's up to us. It's completely up to us if we want to continue incarnating in this construct. This is where, in a sense, we have the free will. So, my belief in some of these things is that we actually don't really have free will, because we are deeply, as you can see, as all these conversations, we're deeply interconnected with many systems. And we are interplaying with them, and our choices that we make here on Earth are influencing and contributing to changes in other galaxies with other species, because we're so deeply interconnected. So just like we're cleaning up the ancestral choices that grandma, great grandma, great grandpa have made, that have literally brought our vessels, our physical bodies, into manifestation, into the incarnation of this current lifetime, to break patterns of suffering, ancestral cyclical trauma down our ancestral lineage, we're doing the exact same thing intergalactically. We are ending patterns within this matrix construct in order for us to choose to experience something else. Now, there are some souls that have chosen to incarnate in this three-dimensional plane in which we experience duality and separation for millennia, and that's part of their journey. That's part of what they have chosen. Some of them have already become conscious of how to elevate and leave this construct, but they choose to come back. And then there are some younger souls that don't understand that when they raise their vibrational frequency as a result of deprogramming and integration of their fractals of themselves, interdimensional fractals, they can then choose at the time of death to experience a higher octave of experience. Now, that being said, we are all moving, always ascending. We are all ascending. Every single organism that exists in 3 dimension or any other dimension is ascending, because the nature of this entire universe in any dimension is ascension. And ascension means that we are evolving higher octave. We are experiencing higher octaves every time, every day, every moment, every lifetime. So I believe that the way that we exist within those cycles and the cyclical nature of this construct is completely up to us. And as you can see in this construct, when you fall out of alignment in vibrational frequency to this dimension, you essentially get sick and you die. You basically dissolve, and then you go back. That's a mechanism that we have to be very aware of. That when our activities become counter creative, the organism recycles. Okay, so that's why it's completely up to us. As long as we understand the laws of the universe, and as long as we understand the mechanism of cyclical patterns, cyclicality, I guess, or how do you say that word? To say that these cycles are cyclical, there's certain laws and mechanism to that. So every single organism is existing, and the higher dimension you go, the longer your existence becomes, right? So these beings in higher dimensions, they're existing thousands of years. Their lifespan is thousands of years, not just 100 or 100 years. So the choices are shifting, and the responsibility of that existence also changes.
What you're saying then, part of what you said is that, so it's not really predetermined. The ascension, the evolution isn't predetermined. We're confronted with a choice, right?
Well, evolution as a whole, or ascension, is a natural aspect of this construct. So everything is evolving. However, what you do in that process of evolution is up to you. You can continue to reincarnate back and move in that cycle, or you can jump and experience other dimensions within this ascension, constructs, different kinds of dimensional constructs.
Yes. There's a quote, and even the Rig Veda has something about this, but the quote is, the destination has already been chosen. It's the journey that counts. So the destination is the ultimate evolution and the reconnection to source. How we get there is up to us. And it may be a very long journey to reconnect to source, but we could go through multiple remembrances and forgetfulness during that time. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, and at the end of the game, it's really about the experience, because this organism is learning through us. It's experiencing through us. If you look at the bigger picture of it, every single organism is just an experience, and there's wisdom that is gained through every lifetime that is massively contributing to the library. The genetic library of all species that are existing in this universe.
So, okay, as we close out, Geraldine,
Yeah.
love to leave it on this question here. So, what are some things that we could realize about our connection to the cosmos and different ETs and races? What are some of these things that we're going to begin to realize in our future, right? Or, as we realize that we're connected to the cosmos, our consciousness expands, and these ET races, are we going to understand our galactic ancestry? Are we going to meet people that are our descendants and our ancestors? What do you feel is in store for us?
Yes, I think that it's our very important responsibility to become aware of all of these fractals of ourselves within ourselves through ourselves, because this is how we experience everything. Everything is a projection of ourselves in this holographic construct, and so. In order to have to try to access as much truth as possible, we have to refine our filters of perception to be able to see truth as much as possible. And so in order to see that, deprogramming of limited one-dimensional thinking, that has to change, and in the ability to access and navigate your physical life as interdimensional organism, that has to change. We are constantly meeting each other, interdimensional fractals of ourselves. In fact, this entire world, it's constantly self-organized. So you and I, we have history together, many lifetimes together. Every single person on this panel, watching this panel right now, we all in resonance to one another. So the law of resonance plays a really huge role in the kind of experiences that we have and the information that comes forth to us. Even if it's something that may feel that it doesn't resonate at first, it's going to turn on. It activates something subconsciously within you that later on you will have access to as a portal of information. So essentially, we're kind of waking up each other with these experiences. And in dream time, the more lucid you become, the more these experiences, out of body experiences, become clear to you. And remember that this is something that all the ancient civilizations have been training, is to wake up conscious and lucidity in dream time to prepare for death, because the bigger picture of this is the integration of all your fractals as you become one again, as you return to that embodiment of source. So I think that we must practice meditation, must practice lucidity, waking up consciousness, so that essentially we're becoming friends with the unknown. That's the number one thing. And the end goal is not to connect with all your ET parts necessarily, but it's to discern. It's to discern and to be able to you become aware of the agreements that you have made in these species that you are making constantly with your choices. So it's like this, it takes you up to another level of spiritual maturity, mature existence, essentially, where you become a citizen of the universe, and you are interacting with respect, with love and compassion, not only to your own family, but to this intergalactic existence that you are part of.
Definitely beautiful. And as you're saying, integrating fractals, I'm feeling like that's kind of what soul retrieval work is, right? We're parts of
Absolutely.
our souls that we're integrating. And I don't know if it happens many ways, but I know for sure through disassociation and trauma in this world, parts of our souls leave in order for us to not have to deal with the pain of what
That's
is
right.
occurring to us, right?
That's
Coming from experience of having a lot of traumatic experiences as a kid. So it's ultimately, we're all doing soul retrieval on this earth, right? Reintegrating with ourselves. And then we can be those 13th dimensional or lower or higher beings living in a 3D construct, but tapped into those dimensions of awareness so that we can pull the data and the expanded perspective into our physical incarnation.
Exactly. Exactly. You said it perfectly. Yeah,
It's
it's so
beautiful.
beautiful. Thank you.
Geraldine, I love you so much.
I love
Thank
you
you so
too.
much.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
for being here. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we'll be seeing you in a couple days at the conference.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Alan. Much love. Thank you to everyone that participated. Love you, and I'll see you soon.
Okay,
Bye.
see you soon. Thank you, Geraldine. All right, everybody. So thank you all so much for tuning into the first panel of 3 panels today, right? And again, you know, in my communication now, I always like to make it evergreen and expansive because I know so many people watch these things after we go live. So to everybody on Portal Ascension Podcast, we have like, I think like 100 plus episodes now on Portal Ascension Podcast, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, iHeartRadio, blah, 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 all those things. So check it out. If you like to listen to audio, please check out the podcast. And even though the Star Beings Conference is tomorrow, which is January 12th, 4 days, link in the description, link in the bio, link on our website, everywhere you can find the link, we have it there. You can sign up at any time and watch it. It's 100% free, or if you want to contribute a donation, you can go ahead and donate as well. And right now, we have like 1,400 people signed up, right? So I'm trying to we have less than 24 hours to get it to 2,000 people. Please help me get that number because we're going to do some mass meditations. There's going to be 33 different speakers there. It's just going to be boom, 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 boom. Entertainment, awareness, disclosure, consciousness, heart-centered experiences. So sign up at portaltoascension.org. And we will be live for all of you guys who are tuning in live. We will be live in a couple of hours with the Ascension panel. Deborah Giusti is hosting the Ascension panel. So subscribe to our YouTubes and all the YouTubes that you're on. We're going to be live on that in just a couple of hours from here. And for everybody on the podcast, tune into the next episode. We'll be live we'll have the recording there of the Ascension panel. And the ultimate final one today is the extraterrestrial experiencer panel. That's how we're going to end it. So love you all. Thank you so much. Shawnette in the room. Thank you for your energy. Kyra, nice to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you as well. Tammy Lane. Thank you so much for tuning in. Robert and Mikhail from Glastonbury as well. Hey, much love, y'all. See you in a little bit. Bye-bye.